been so stuck in my head that I forget just about everything my therapist said. Maybe I'm self-helpless.
Hey everyone, welcome to Self-Helpless, where science, spirituality, and sustainability are brunch buddies. I'm Delanie Fischer, and details about today's topic can be found in the episode description. Returning listeners, if an episode of Self-Helpless has supported you in some way, a quick 5-star rating or review, if you haven't left one already, honestly keeps this indie podcast alive amidst the big old budget behemoths out there. So thank you for feeding the algorithm a little treat for me. Ad-free episodes are now on Patreon at patreon.com/selfhelpless, and info about some free goodies will be shared in the outro. Okay, it's podcast time. What is fetishization? And more specifically, what is an Asia file?
So it's a pretty obscure term that nobody uses anymore, but it was
Right.
used a bit in the early 2000s. And I only use it just because it's an easy way to say man with yellow fever, because that's just too long, or man
Yeah.
with Asian fetish. In my definition, is a man who like fetishizes Asian women, meaning he treats them as disposable, interchangeable, and just views them as like kind of subservient sex objects. So it's very different from a mere preference. And here's where it gets tricky because all these men are messaging me angry because they're like, it's a preference. But I'm like, there is a difference between a preference and a fetish.
Right. And what are some examples of what that looks like in action? Let's say that maybe somebody's in a romantic relationship, or just the most common ones that we can be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, your last 5 ex-girlfriends were Asian. That doesn't mean that could be a preference.
Right.
It's a flag, especially if you live somewhere where there's not a lot of Asian women, you have to like seek them out specifically.
Oh, good point. Interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
it was so interesting because I was speaking to somebody the other day who was like a former Mormon. And this is the first time I've heard of it, but they go on missions in other countries. But there is like a thing where Mormon men will go to Asian countries and then return back and only date Asian women, which I've never heard of before in my life. But apparently, he said this was a
Interesting.
thing. But another flag is man, if he's following like 100 Asian pinup models on Instagram, it's like
Mhm.
probably not good if your boyfriend's doing that. Uh,
Right.
but I've also had it where like my girlfriend was with a white guy, and then around her back, she'd like be like, "Oh, you're so hot," like stuff like that, which is like just straight up
Oh my
disrespectful. Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've had conversations with my Asian friends who have to think about these things the way that I have not had to think of as a white woman. And so I was kind of exposed to it several years ago when they would get nervous if the person they were maybe interested in dating had a couple ex-girlfriends who were
Yeah.
also Asian. They had to be very hyper vigilant with their behavior, this person's behavior. Can we talk a little bit about the term yellow fever? Because you even mentioned in your book how that is derogatory, like further derogatory to this entire thing.
I mean, it's just like jungle fever, right? Like
Yeah,
really offensive, really. But
yeah.
yellow is referring to the color of skin that you refer to Asians. My original book title was going to be like Yellow Fever Hustler, which is my original pitch. But then my editor started like saying the name to other people, and they were like, "Oh, like malaria." Yeah,
Yeah.
it does happen to be that, and I find that very interesting because it's like these Asian fetishes with yellow fever are like the disease, kind of like a mosquito sucking the life out of the Asian woman, just replacing her with a paper thin stereotype.
And you also mentioned how, this doesn't happen the other way around because of the historical roots, right? You don't see Asian women fetishizing white men. Can you talk a little bit about that piece?
Yes, there's a whole thing where they're like, when I talk about the Asian fetish, they're like, well, you guys have a white fetish, which there is a thing where there's a very high prevalence of Asian women dating outside of their race more than any other ethnicity, I believe. And
Mhm.
that could just be naturally in America, there's more white men than any other men. So that would be a logical reaction. But
Right.
second of all, there is some truth to internalized racism, which is basically when we were growing up, Asian men were represented in the media as like Revenge of the Nerds or that guy from 16 Candles, like horrible, horrible representations and nothing really positive. And then white men are the football player, the hero of every movie and every like story. So then you grow up like kind of idealizing that. So there's that at play. But that's not a fetish, because a fetish, the Asian fetish, is harmful because its origins are colonialist and pillaging and war. And Asian women have simply not gone to like England and like colonized them and then took all the men as their reward, you know? So
Yeah. It just shows you how important it is to learn the roots of things, and your book does a really great job of tying that into all of your points. And the importance of representation in the media you already mentioned. I mean, can you speak to how that influenced you and your choices, personally and professionally? I mean, it even such a funny line in your book saying that you committed to the habit of smoking, and largely because you didn't want to be associated with like the
yeah.
nerdy Asian, right? Like anything that you want to share about how important that representation was or lack thereof.
I mean, it's funny, it's so baked into me. I still, everyone thinks smoking's disgusting now, but like I've quit for like 15 years now, but I still like I'm sober from drugs and alcohol and I don't miss, but the smoking thing, I still would love a cigarette once in a while. I can't do it because I
Yeah.
can't just have one, but like that romanticization of like the badass smoking, that was represented in movies while I was growing up is
Right.
still baked into me. It's hard for people to understand now because we have K-pop and Squid Games and like K-pop Demon Hunters and they're all number one. And but growing up, I kind of talked about all the Asian representations in media in my book, almost all of them because they were like 5 to 10, So it was
Yeah.
easy for me to cover them all. And they all portrayed Asian women as either like kung fu fighters, like these dangerous assassins, or the submissive Asian woman, and very, very hypersexual. So to me, somebody who was like very nerdy and invisible in high school, like nobody asked me out. I really, really wanted to be seen. And I think like any young girl, I wanted to be desirable. And like that was kind of the only thing I saw as an example for Asian women. And plus, we were growing up in a time where women were highly sexualized. This was the Playboy Maxim magazine era with like Pamela Anderson as the main goddess of the world.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, you mentioned things that I didn't even know about as far as like music videos, like The Weeknd and Childish Gambino, and like their representations of Asian women, and how some people might dismiss this as okay, well, some people just have a fetish; it's no big deal. They just think Asian women are gorgeous, But there is this dangerous side and this violent side as well. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that is the thing that men always like to say, like, why are you guys so mad? This is a compliment. Which on its surface, it may seem to be so. And I saw it as that way when I was like 21. There was nobody looking at me. And suddenly I was like, oh, there are people who like people like me. That was better than nothing, right?
Mm,
So, but the problematic part is that it often leads to violence. Not all of the time, not most of the time, but enough of the time that we should be concerned. We saw that with the Atlanta spa shootings. And
yeah.
then I bring up so many military examples in my book, and people are always like, why are you bringing up a war from 100 years ago? But right now, the US military has a base in Okinawa, several bases, and just in June, another Marine was accused of assault. And this is like over 100. Like this is a big issue actually. So this is still happening. This is not something that has like gone by the wayside.
Horrible.
Yeah, I mean, the craziest part of it is that I have personally experienced violence from the Asian fetish, but I didn't realize it until like I just didn't connect it because I was assaulted in college by this Asian fetishist, and I talk about it in the book, and I didn't realize it was assault until because I didn't talk about it with anybody. Um,
Mhm.
and when I did start speaking about it, women were like, that is assault. And then I still didn't like make the Asian it was weird because it's so fragmented and disassociated.
Yeah.
And then I stuffed it down so far I didn't think about it. But during the pandemic, there was all this Asian hate happening. I grew up in a very white neighborhood and I didn't really experience any racism. So it wasn't like something I encountered, but it was so blatant. Us just sitting home watching all these viral videos of these elderly women and men getting attacked brutally while they were walking on the street, or like videos of people, American citizens who were born here, being told, like, go back to your country. Yeah, it became really apparent during that time that there was this undercurrent of racism that probably always existed.
Mm.
But that was shocking.
There was a line in your book, I think it said something like, "We've been seen as desirable, but disposable as well, and very
Yeah.
replaceable." And you even mentioned that, some people see what they're saying as compliments. "Oh, Asian women, they're the sweetest, the easiest, the best wives, the prettiest." What is underneath comments like that appear to some as compliments?
Yeah, like the family values one would seem really innocuous, right?
Right.
In I think some minds of Asian fetishes, it's because an Asian woman's family valued because she puts her family and the man, most importantly, in front of everything else, just everything. So it's kind of like the trad wife thing,
Right.
but it really does sound like a compliment or like a harmless thing when you say family values. You could say there was an excuse when I was growing up because there was like, oh, there's only memoirs of a geisha representing Asian women. So,
Mm.
hey, you watch that and you think that's how Asian women, that makes sense, right? But now there's so many multifaceted representations, you can't fall into that anymore.
What is maybe one of your favorites or a couple of your favorite representations so far of an Asian woman on screen?
I just really loved the character in Beef because
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
she was a not a hero by any means. She
Right.
was a very flawed character, but
Right.
it was not fetishy, and she was just like a real flawed, multifaceted person with like feelings and ideas and like not about sex. So I thought
Right.
that was great. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good one. You talk about this contrast of feeling invisible growing up and then being very visible, obviously, in your career and also being fetishized by people. What was that like, and did that feed into your desire to go into the career paths that you did, or, anything that you wanna share about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when I started doing pinup modeling when I was 19, and when you're that young, that attention feels like power, you know? And then when
Mm.
I was so empty of like self-love that it felt like love. And it it felt like power when I felt completely powerless, but it was like a drug. Like it would only last temporarily because it wasn't real. So I did pinup modeling specifically in the import car show scene, which is like the Fast and Furious type cars. And you were always replaceable. It's never like a stable kind of fulfilling thing. It felt real great at first, and then
Mm.
it felt really empty. Yeah.
Do you remember a certain moment where you realized that you were being seen or admired? Like, going from feeling invisible as a kid to, was there a certain experience that you had?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I had this one idol because there were no Asian women anywhere. There was like the prostitute, random prostitute in the movie or something,
Right.
but there wasn't like a Asian pop star, movie star for me to look up to. And then the internet kind of started when I was in high school with like AOL and all of that. And I got online and there was like hundreds of websites already dedicated to this one Asian model. And her
Oh,
name was Sung Hee Lee. And people called her the most beautiful woman in the world, whatever. And it's the first time I saw an Asian woman in that Pamela Anders style pinup girl. And she was
yeah.
a Playboy model. So I kind of became really obsessed with her and just like collected everything she had. And like for 5 years, like was a member of her website and just like really looked up to her. And then I like eventually decided I wanted to be a Playboy model too. But one day she was looking for models and then I submitted myself. And I think the big change was like when I just worked with her makeup artist. And I was just like this little college girl, and they put like 5 pounds of hair on me and the fake eyelashes and the makeup, and I just felt completely transformed that day. My parents were so strict that like when I got into college, I just like went wild. Like I was like, I'm gonna pursue this pinup Molly thing. I'm gonna go raving and do drugs and start smoking. And then like I got into trouble really, really quick. I just like became particularly rebellious.
Interesting. Yeah, and the representation of Asian men on screen and media is very different, right? They're often emasculated, right? All these things. What are some conversations around that piece of this too, and how Asian men feel about their representation?
There's this term called Oxford study, and
Mhm.
whenever like an Asian woman is with a white man on TikTok, like she posts her boyfriend or something, there'll be comments from Asian men mostly saying Oxford study, because there's like this claim that there was a study at Oxford that proved that Asian women like worship white men and like prefer them to Asian. It's totally false,
Oh,
but there's
weird.
like this divide within this community. So there are men who are very Asian men who are very, very angry about like how many Asian women date white men. They're like
Okay.
enraged. So yeah, there's a real divide in the community, which is like ridiculous because Asian men don't own Asian women either. Like I think it's good because some Asian men have read my book and they're like, I think Asian women are just trying to do the best they can under the circumstances of the situation. But things are changing and getting a lot better because now with K-pop and BTS and Squid Games, like there's tons of women who are non-Asian who love Asian men now. So it kind of
Yeah.
shows you this is pure media influence. It has nothing based in reality. It's just whatever we show.
Right, right. What have your findings been around Asian women and pornography? Maybe some stats there. How does that play into all of this as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a study on Asian women in porn, and it found that like there was the highest violence style
Wow.
pornography
Oh my
for Asian
gosh.
women. And then also, I think there was like the Pornhub's 2022 or something list of top terms, search terms. And I think amongst the top 20, there were like 10 Asian terms like hentai and Filipina or like Japanese or this and that. But then when you go on the list of like the top 50 porn stars or something, there's barely any Asian females, despite the fact that the Asian term. So that just shows to me that it's interchangeable. Like there, any
Whoa.
Asian woman will do. Not like there's not one Asian star at the moment. There have been
Wow.
throughout the years, but at the moment, for some reason, there's not really any.
Wow. That yeah, that speaks volumes right there.
Yeah.
You describe an experience, the assault that you mentioned in your book, the coercion that was involved. You were a young model at the time. If you could go back in time and tell that girl something, what would you say to her?
I mean, the one thing I would tell models who are like, not with the agent and just trying to figure things out, simply just like bring someone with you to your shoots. Cause that would have saved me from everything, right? Nobody knew where I was. I could have just disappeared. I mean, there's been scenarios where I think there was a case of a photographer around a couple decades ago in California. Several models had disappeared with him. So much worse could have happened. Victims always like blame themselves
Right.
because that's how we're taught basically. Like, oh, how did you dress or what did you do or this and that. If I was just going to speak to my little girl, I would just tell her she was loved because my parents did love me unconditionally, but Asian parents don't express their love in the American way. And I
Mm.
was growing up watching Brady Bunch and like they're like, I love you and giving hugs and my parents just didn't do that. I wish more young people were taught about self-love because you can generate that for yourself and not depend on outside people and validation.
Absolutely. I'm really glad that you talked about the fawn response in your book because I feel like that's the least talked about one. Because you mentioned, how your parents showed you love and what you were maybe seeing on the Brady Bunch. What were some similarities? What were some differences?
Yeah, I mean, my parents sacrificed everything to move here and give us a bigger, better life. So like they worked and like everything was for us. It didn't seem like it because my mom would be like, we'd get in trouble for getting an A minus or something. Um, or there was a lot of criticism,
Yeah.
For Asian parents, they believe criticism. It doesn't work. You see, like a lot of Asian kids are very obedient and successful. So like that criticism does push you to succeed, but it does leave you with some trauma too. So there's that.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And have you, whether in preparation for the book or currently, have you spoken to other people about their experiences with being fetishized? Have there been similarities or differences that you have realized in conversations like that?
Yeah, definitely. Generally, for women, all women have been objectified. So there's still that common relation amongst all women we can all resonate with. Objectification is putting down of women, like treating women as less than.
Right. You mentioned this concept of the model minority. Can you talk a little bit about that? Who is the person in your life that's the hardest to shop for during the holidays, birthdays, really any time of year? I have been told that I am actually that person. I'm a minimalist, so I like quality, functionality, something that's ethically sourced. When I purchase a new gift for myself or someone else, I prioritize all of those things as well, which is why I love Cozy Earth. They have incredible everyday essentials like comfy loungewear and bedding. I have their bamboo stretch knit pajama set in one of my favorite colors, olive green. It is the softest thing that's ever touched my body. Cam and I are obsessed with their bamboo sheet set. They are 100% viscose from bamboo fabric, so it's very breathable. These are such practical, thoughtful, high quality gifts that can be enjoyed every day, all year round. Seriously, we spend at least a third of our lives in PJs and in our bed, sometimes more than a third of your life if you're a homebody like me. Cozy Earth also offers a 100-night sleep trial, so you can try their sheets out, and if you don't love them, you can return them hassle-free. Trust me, you will not want to return these things. And they also provide a 10-year warranty. Black Friday has come early at Cozy Earth. Right now, you can stack my code HELPLESS on top of their site-wide sale, giving you up to 40% off in savings. These deals will not last, so start your holiday shopping today. I personally like to get my shopping done early, and if you get a post-purchase survey, be sure to mention that you heard about Cozy Earth on Self-Helpless. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth.
Yeah, so there's like this perception of Asians as the model minority, meaning they, keep their heads down, they don't complain too much, and they are upwardly mobile. And it was kind of believed to be created by basically white supremacy to create this ideology of like, oh, these Asians, they're minorities who are doing so well and they're just keeping quiet and doing their thing. Why can't you do that?
Oh,
So then the groups
interesting.
are pitted against each other, and there is a lot of Asian fighting with other people of color because a lot of Asians are proud of being the model minority. So then they are
Mm.
also like, "Oh, why can't you be like us?" So instead of like fighting against the actual force that is causing all of this, we're infighting, which is like the point.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, so interesting. Yeah, again, so important to know the origins and the history behind things because you don't even realize who created the division sometimes.
yeah.
And it can really disarm that if you do learn about it. So your romantic relationships, what has the evolution been for, yeah, romantic partners and your experiences when you were younger versus presently, like anything like that that you'd like to share?
Yeah, when I was growing up, so the whole idea of submissive women, it does come from Asia. There's like the three leaders or something. I'm totally saying the words wrong, but from
No worries.
Confucianism, there's
Okay.
belief
Yeah.
that Asian woman has three masters in her life. First is her father, second is her husband, and third is her son.
Oh my.
I kind of grew up with that idea of like very respectful to authority. And then when I was younger, I was very attracted to like type A men. So I kind of gravitated towards Korean men. It's funny because right now Korean men are like BTS, so they're like presented as these feminine, sweet men, but like Korean men are known to be really domineering, actually. And I was attracted to that because I was naturally a little bit like submissive. So I was attracted to men who would just lead. And I would not consider myself like submissive now anymore. I'm definitely outspoken and very firm in my beliefs, but feminism isn't about us being the same. I think like men and women are equal, but we're still different. I do very much like embrace the feminine without being submissive. Yeah.
Right, right. And what does that look like in practice for you? Embracing your femininity without being submissive. What does that look like in a relationship for you, with anybody in your life?
I think like having a lot of boundaries, like not like set in a rigid way, but I'll have a lot of boundaries in early dating, as in like not casually sleeping with, not that there's anything wrong with that, but like I think it's important to have clear boundaries and then to find someone who's able to respect them because not everybody wants to respect boundaries.
Right.
It's a good way to weed out people who are respectful, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And you talked about I think one of a boyfriend that you had early on where he smoked a lot of pot and he
Yeah.
always like passed you the bong and wanted you to smoke too even though you didn't like it, but you
He knew I didn't
right,
like it. Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
you would smoke and you wouldn't feel good and all of that. And so I'm assuming things like that have changed drastically for you in your relationships. What
Yes.
what was an experience or kind of turning point for you where you started setting boundaries differently?
I mean, I think a lot of that was getting sober because, like,
Yeah.
a lot of like not being sober is like you can't even keep track of what's happening, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, but once I got sober, I did like the sobriety things, like doing the step work or whatever. And that involves just going back on your entire past and going through every relationship and writing about it and speaking about it to somebody. So I think that's where all the clarity came because I
Yes.
literally told my life story to somebody and we like analyzed it all.
Your experience with addiction and recovery, when did things start for you? And did your experience as an Asian woman play a role in addiction and how you recovered from it as well and have been in recovery?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's like that many Asians in recovery for some reason. I don't know if that's like
Interesting.
a societal thing that people don't like to admit because I know Asians are also I think the least likely to go to mental health. I got sober. There wasn't like a lightning bulb moment. I think I just was in my 30s and I was like, it's not cute to be like doing cocaine every single night. And like one day this is going to get really pathetic. So
Mm.
I think I knew I had to stop.
And your career trajectory, getting into pinup modeling and then music, right? Nylon Pink.
Yeah.
So, what were those transitions like, and what was kind of the decision making around, moving from into one career to the next to where you are now?
Yeah, it was always seeking validation because it was like I was a pinup model and then I felt empty doing that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to prove I have some talent with singing. Um,
Interesting.
and
Yeah.
then so I went into that and I was in the band and I loved being in a band. Like I loved the girls turned out to be like sisters and then there was a lot of solidarity in that but I really hated performing live. But I loved the idea of being in a band. I loved shooting music videos, but I hated touring. So it's like I hated all the main
Yeah.
aspects of being in a band except for the idea and validation that I got from it. And then combine
Yes.
that with like the heavy drug abuse of everybody in the band. So like it was during the band and touring where I really, really wanted to get sober because I was miserable on tour. Yeah.
Oh man, that hits me as well. I used to do stand up and I left that industry because I hate touring so much, but I love so many other aspects of it. I love the
Yeah.
joke writing. I love hanging out in green rooms with
Yeah.
comedians, That lifestyle piece to happiness is so important that you can love things about a craft, but the reality of what it takes to what you have to do to make a living off of it in a
Yeah.
certain way is such a different ball game. So what was the transition from music into, now writing a book and the other thing, content creation and things that you do now? What was that like, that pivot like for you?
That was a total accident. I think after I quit the band, I just like didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I just kind of knew I loved travel.
Mm,
So I was open to like exploring how you can have a career in travel. And eventually I learned about travel writing and I was like, oh my God, people get paid to write about travel. So I just like took pitching classes and took feature writing classes and just really aggressively pursued that. And then I really fell in love with writing. And then the book was very accidental too. It was only during the Asian hate. And then we had a year of Asian hate during the pandemic. And so I was a travel writer, but I started writing about like these cultural issues and racism that was happening at the time.
yeah.
And then started posting on TikTok about it because I had a lot of time during the pandemic. So amidst all this racism, the Asian spa shootings was in Atlanta, and there was a sex addicted, and I believe like Asian fetishes or Asian file man who went into massage parlors and shot 8 people dead, and 6 of them were Asian women. I think the media still claims it wasn't racially or sexually motivated, but I think everyone in the Asian community knows it was.
Right.
Um, so then everybody was talking about that because we felt really gaslit and just like invisible again. And I think that's what ultimately inspired the book. But like,
Mm,
I'm so grateful now that I left the entertainment industry because like I could be totally fine for other people, but like for me to have to be like still depending on like outside validation on looks and youth, like I would not
right.
want to do that.
Right. And
Yeah.
how has writing felt different for you than other forms of artistic expression that that you've pursued with music and modeling, and what does it feel like to do this now, to be a
Yeah,
writer?
I mean, it has nothing to do with looks, right? You can
Yeah.
until you're 99 and like
Right. Right.
matter. So that's like the greatest priceless gift in the world. And
Yeah.
then also what's been really good for me is like being really honest about the thing. This is a recovery thing too. So I was able to like talk so blatantly about things because I spent 10 years in recovery talking about my worst things in front of a group, as we all do in recovery, right? So that really paved the road for that. But also I didn't like know that my book would be so healing. Writing it and just putting like there's a saying in recovery where you're as sick as your secrets. So
Yeah.
it's just like say them and like yeah, there's going to be some people who judge, but I think there's going to be a lot more people who it resonates with.
Yeah.
It's just so damaging, I think, to keep these kind of secrets. They eat you up. They were eating me up from the inside out until I
Yeah.
finally like let them out.
Yeah. You even you share in the book that you had watched the video of your assault, right? And how many years after was that you watched the video?
I mean, I actually watched it pretty recently just to like make sure I knew what was going on while I was like writing. Cause
Wow.
um, I didn't like watch it straight through, but just kind of scanned everything. And the most disturbing part is just that I don't remember a lot of it. Like,
Wow.
I can't really tell anyone exactly how things happen because I don't even remember the sequence of like how. I just know a week before or 2 weeks before another man. I was doing modeling, so all these men were also like trying to push you into hardcore porn. You can make so much more money doing that. And I had just said earlier, like, absolutely not doing that. I'm not interested in that at all.
Yeah.
So another thing is that I think it's really important to speak about this because, first of all, we have like the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking victims being kind of silenced right now. But
Mm.
also, just last month, I think there was a big okay, so there's a big case on Pornhub, and hundreds of girls came out and said they were trafficked. Basically, they would like get a girl from Miami, a college co-ed, like
Oh
18
God.
or something, sent her over for a modeling gig. But once she was in the room, she was alone with some big guy who forced her to do much more.
Mm.
Um, those victims ended up suing and won $18 million against the company. But the leader of the company, the founder, was still on the run for like 5 years and wanted by the FBI. And he finally got caught last month and is sentenced to 27 years. But like, it's
Yeah.
not as uncommon as you think, you know?
Right, right. You share in the book, losing Kat, one of your bandmates, right? Could you share a little bit about that experience? And I know that you had written her almost like a little love apology letter in the book as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I met Kat, she was just like this most charismatic, stylish, like little unicorn of a being, and so full of life. And I just felt like I did this with my bandmates because I was the elder who had some experience in the entertainment industry. And
Mhm.
basically, what I had learned was that sex sells, right? And I had
Yeah.
tried with music, like when I came out, I tried to do something a little more cutesy and it got no attention. But when I veered a little sexier, it got more, you know. So I just had that kind of experience when I did solo music for a minute. Um,
Mm,
and just like throughout the years, I saw Kat really lean into the sexy side because you get a lot of validation from it as a young woman, right?
yeah.
And she too had some problems with drugs and alcohol, as we all did. And me and Kiki, my other bandmate, we ended up getting sober. And then Kat just she would say like, "I will never quit alcohol." I think she would just say, just like after the band ended, the rest of us kind of pivoted into other careers, but Kat just never really found her footing again. Um,
Mm,
and she just like distanced herself, and we knew something was wrong, but she wouldn't come out and she wouldn't talk about it. And she just like was very isolated. Yeah, eventually she was just found dead in her apartment. It was very shocking, but then also we just knew we had known for years that something like that could happen. Me and Kiki, I think, just found it particularly resonant because, like, we were like, that could have easily been us if we didn't get sober. You know,
right,
the only
right.
thing that probably saved me is getting sober.
Just based on all the experiences that you've been through, what does your daily routine look like that brings you a lot of joy or peace?
Like, I do so much work. You know, morning
Especially
routine.
in recovery. I bet you have some good shit to share. I know you do.
I do like 20 minutes of meditation in the morning, and then like sometimes I'll do morning pages. The one thing I really want to recommend to the world, I've been talking about it to everybody, is like I recently discovered this book called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And it's
Ooh.
like changing my life. It's basically and it's not a long read, but it's just basically about actionable steps that this author took to like deeply love himself after this horrible breakup. But yeah, I really recommend that. It's just like a basically like trying to train your inner critic because we are all like naturally have inner critics, right? But
Yeah,
to have that instead of like judging yourself automatically, just having it say, I love myself. Like that's
absolutely.
default setting instead of criticism.
Yes, I love a good book recommendation. Thank you. Are there any other books or apps or tools or anything like that that you especially love or something that you keep coming back to? Anything like that? We love a
I
hot tip here.
I'm a huge fan of meditation and like
Yeah,
I do a chanting style meditation, which works for me, but there's so many styles. There's like, I think it's so individual. Like a lot of my friends like transcendental meditation, which I've never tried, but people really rave about that one. But I think meditation's so important because it gets you out of like that self obsession and just like for me, like I was always a city girl, like growing up, I was like, oh, I don't really like nature and all of that. But when
yeah,
I got sober, I really fell in love with the ocean and diving and like found that really meditative. But for others, it could be like painting or like hiking or whatever. But I think it's important to find those like also meditative. joys and activities.
Yes, the activities where time just melts away, baby, and you don't know where 4 hours went. I hear you. I'm curious about your thoughts on, the cultural appropriation that happens in the media as well. And I think you had mentioned like, Gwen Stefani situation and things like that. Why is it important to be aware of things like that? And some people also kind of dismiss it as, it's not a big deal. They wore an outfit or they did a thing, and it feels very surface level. But what's beyond that?
Yeah, for the Gwen Stefani example in particular, like I don't think she set out to do anything offensive at all. I think she was a
Right.
genuine fan of Japanese culture, although she has been accused of culturally appropriating many things besides Harajuku girls. But
Right.
it's just kind of weird when you break it down. It's very questionable. Like she has these four girls. They never speak. She calls them imaginary. They're like bowing to her. Like it's one thing if she had four, like a white, black, and Asian, like a whole multicultural, then it wouldn't be like offensive. But the fact that Asian
Interesting.
women are already seen as submissive and now they're like fawning after her, like she's the queen, is
Right.
like not great.
Right. 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 You had mentioned like when people are appropriating, they're often not learning about the culture. They're not learning about the history of the thing that they're doing or wearing or whatever it is. And on top of it, they could be profiting off of it
This is a
while
profit. That's the difference. Yeah.
right, the profit, and then they don't have the same criticism that the original culture has to put up with these things. So I know that there was this the Love Island experience recently. I mean, how do you feel when stuff like that comes out, because it does lead to this larger conversation with everybody, right? There's negative things, there's positive things, but it's also an education kind of teaching moment. What are your thoughts when something like that happens?
I mean, it's crazy. I think that was a really good learning moment because, like, we learned that a vast not majority, but vast part of the population did not realize that the C word was offensive, really.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
they're just like, oh, that's just like a description of eyes. But like Asians do consider it offensive. But also she was using it offensively. I don't think she was trying to be offensive, but the way
Yeah.
she it was offensive because basically she was saying, oh, my eyes are looking too Asian. I need to like get surgery to fix them. And then it goes back to like, oh, well, the most popular surgery amongst Asians is like double eyelid surgery, which is a surgery to kind of
Mm,
make our eyes like kind of pop or be bigger. So there's like that whole history behind it that she's probably not aware of either. Uh,
right.
I also am really against the cancellation thing. Like, I think we should be able to speak,
Yes.
make mistakes. And so she seemed genuinely apologetic, and I'm fine with it. I don't like this like attacking her, and like maybe she didn't even need to be kicked off the show necessarily. She could have like given an apology on the show or something. I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't like cancel culture.
Everybody makes mistakes, and being able to own up to them, learn from them, and then teach others, and it spread that is so vital. Is there a certain part in the book that doesn't get asked about very much that you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, I think Lucy Liu's an icon who has like blazed the way for Asian American women. But one incident from that chapter I wanted to point out is that like I pursued acting a little bit as I was in my 20s, and um actually later too, because I think it was just 10 years ago that I got this audition that I talk about in the book, and it was for Marco Polo, which was on Netflix and was one of the most expensive like series ever. It didn't do well, but it was
Oh, wow.
heavily pushed. And the audition for the role was crazy because, like, first of all, it was a sex scene. So it's like, how do you audition a sex scene?
Right.
The description in there, the character was described as the most dangerous fuck in all of Asia.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Also, there was another description that wasn't in the line, so it's like, "Why did you write this?" But it was like, then her lotus flower it's inserted into his jade sword, like, it's
Oh my god.
so
Yikes.
incredibly cheesy and horribly written and
Yeah.
offensive. Yeah.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was like that's actually wasn't very long ago. So
Right.
I haven't been auditioning lately, but hopefully that's not what's still going out there.
Absolutely. And like what would you like to see change your hope for the future, I guess?
I would really like men to read the book because I think like Asian women or women can already relate to a lot of what's happening in there.
Right.
Also, I think if you're a man who, even if you don't have a fetish, even if you just
Totally.
have a preference for Asian women, I feel like you should know the history behind the history of fetishization just to know, you know, be aware like, oh, you might accidentally play into something. But like, I think it's
Right.
like when you're into something, it's like your responsibility to know the history behind it also.
Absolutely. And I'd imagine it would help people be aware if they witness something, right? Like instead of being dismissive, like, oh, they didn't mean it that way or that's not a big deal, they will understand the impact those comments and situations have.
Yeah.
Kyla, thank you so much. This was great. Where can people find more about you, your work, your book, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so Fetishized is out at all bookstores, so you could find it anywhere, but I always say support your local independent bookstore. And then my name's Kaila Yu, and it's spelled Kaila, and you can find me on all social media by that.
Thanks for hanging out with Self-Helpless. Feel free to share this with someone who could use it, and you can binge related conversations linked in the show notes. Ad-free episodes are now available on Patreon, and because I'm practically allergic to social media, the best way to get notified about new episodes is to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or join the email list at selfhelplesspodcast.com, where you will also find some free goodies like a watch and read list and the quote buffet. All right, love you big time, and thank you so much.